Have you ever felt like time is absolute, like every moment unfolds in a fixed order that everyone would agree on? Well, your brain is lying to you. The way you perceive time isn't a faithful record of reality. It's a clever illusion crafted by your brain to make sense of the chaotic world around you. Today we're diving into how the brain actually represents time, why the myth of the Cartesian Theater is holding us back, and two mind-blowing experiments that prove your consciousness is never truly in sync with real time. Let's start with a simple problem that reveals the brain's time-traveling tricks. Your toe is way farther from your brain than your forehead. If someone touched both at the exact same moment, the signal from your toe would have to travel a much longer path to reach your brain. So why don't you feel the forehead touch first, then the toe touch a split second later? Intuitively, you might think your brain needs to sync these signals, like waiting for the slowpoke toe signal to catch up before showing both touches to your consciousness. But that's a huge waste of time, and your brain is all about efficiency. The truth is, your brain doesn't need to sync them at all. It doesn't care when the signals arrive, it only cares about what they mean. This is the critical difference between time represented and time of representing. Fancy terms for a simple idea. The time your brain says an event happened, the content of the experience doesn't have to match the time the brain actually received the signal, the physical vehicle carrying that information. Let's use a historical analogy to make this concrete. Back in 1815, the British Empire signed a truce ending the War of 1812 in Belgium. But news traveled at a snail's pace back then. 15 days later, British soldiers fought and died in the Battle of New Orleans, totally unaware the war was over. When the truce news finally reached New Orleans, it was too late to stop the bloodshed. Now, imagine a British commander in India receiving two letters, one about the Battle of New Orleans, a devastating defeat, and one about the truce peace at last. The battle letter arrives first, then the truce letter 5 days later. But the commander doesn't think the battle happened before the truce. He reads the dates on the letters and realizes the truce was signed first. The arrival time of the letters, time of representing, doesn't matter. What matters is the date on them, time represented. Your brain does the exact same thing. It doesn't rely on when sensory signals arrive to know when events happened. It extracts time information from the content of the signals themselves. This is why you can feel simultaneous touches on your toe and forehead, even though their signals reach your brain at different times. Now, let's bust the myth that makes this hard to wrap our heads around, the Cartesian Theater. Descartes thought there was a single spot in your brain, the pineal gland, where all sensory signals come together to be experienced, like a movie screen for your consciousness. Even today, many people unconsciously believe this. There's a fixed moment when an event enters your consciousness, locked in time. But the brain has no such spot. The multiple drafts model explains it better. Your consciousness is a stream of overlapping, constantly revising drafts. Information is processed in different brain regions at different times, and over time, a coherent narrative emerges. There's no final movie of your experience, just the latest edit your brain needs to control your behavior. Now, let's get to the experiment that shook up neuroscience, Benjamin Libet's backwards referral in time study. Libet worked with patients who were awake during brain surgery, only local anesthetic, think getting a cavity filled. He stimulated two places, the somatosensory cortex, the part of the brain that processes touch sensations, which makes you feel tingles in specific body parts, and the patient's hand directly. Here's what he found. When he stimulated the hand, the patient felt a tingle, but it seemed to happen earlier than the tingle from cortical stimulation. Even weirder, if he stimulated the left cortex first, then the left hand, patients reported feeling the hand tingle first, then the cortex tingle, complete reverse of the actual order. Libet explained this with backwards referral. When the hand is stimulated, the brain's first burst of activity, called the primary evoked potential, acts like a time stamp. Even though it takes 500 milliseconds for the brain to process the hand signal to neuronal adequacy, The point where it's considered conscious, the brain refers the tingle back to the time of that initial burst. So the tingle feels like it happened when the signal first arrived, not when the brain finished processing it. Critics went wild over this. Dualists like John Eccles, a Nobel Prize-winning neuroscientist, said this proved the mind is separate from the brain. How else could the brain play tricks with time? But the multiple drafts model has a simpler explanation. There's no backwards projection or time travel. The brain just represents the hand tingle as happening earlier because that's what makes ecological sense. It's like your brain putting a postmark on the tingle that says, sent at time X, even if the brain received and processed it later. Libet's experiment also sparked a firestorm about free will. In later studies, he had subjects flex their wrists spontaneously and note when they decided to do it using a rotating clock spot to mark the moment. He found that the brain's readiness potential, the neural activity that initiates the movement, started 350 to 400 milliseconds before the subject reported deciding to flex. This seemed to show that your brain decides to move before you're conscious of the decision. But again, the Cartesian Theater is tricking us. The decision isn't a single event that pops into consciousness at a fixed time. It's a gradual process. Neural activity builds up, and at some point the brain creates a narrative. I decided to flex my wrist at time X. The readiness potential is part of that gradual process, not a secret decision made before your consciousness catches up. Now, let's take a break from heavy neuroscience with a fun but equally mind-blowing experiment, Gray Walter's precognitive carousel. Walter implanted electrodes in patients' motor cortex, the part of the brain that controls movement. Patients thought they were advancing a slide carousel by pressing a button, but the button was a dummy. The carousel was actually triggered by their brain's motor activity, picked up by the electrodes. What happened next was surreal. Patients reported feeling like the carousel was reading their minds. They'd think, I'm about to press the button, and the slide would advance before they could even move their finger. Some even worried they'd press the button twice because the slide was already moving. Why did this happen? Because their brain expected feedback, the slide advancing after pressing the button. But the feedback came earlier than expected, so the brain created a narrative to make sense of it. The carousel moved before I pressed the button. It's not precognition, it's the brain misinterpreting the timing of feedback relative to its own intentions. So what do all these experiments really tell us? Time perception is an illusion. Your brain doesn't record time like a stopwatch. It constructs it based on what makes sense for survival. Let's break down the key takeaways so far. First, the brain distinguishes between time represented when an event is said to happen and time of representing when the brain processes the signal. Second, there's no Cartesian theater, no single moment when an event becomes conscious. Consciousness is a stream of multiple drafts with no final definitive version. Third, experiments like Libet's and Gray Walter's don't prove dualism. They prove the brain is a master storyteller, not a faithful recorder of reality. This might feel unsettling. If time perception is an illusion, what's real? Well, the reality of time for you is exactly what your brain constructs. It's the narrative that lets you catch a ball, have a conversation, or feel the warmth of a hug. Your brain's job isn't to show you real time, it's to show you a version of time that works for navigating the world. Let's wrap this up with a thought experiment to drive the point home. Imagine you're watching a movie. The scenes are shot out of order, edited together, and projected at 24 frames per second. You don't see the chaos of filming, you see a coherent story with a clear beginning, middle, and end. Your brain is like that movie editor. It takes fragmented sensory signals, shot out of order by your eyes, ears, and skin, edits them into a coherent narrative, and presents it to you as time. The only difference: there's no audience watching the movie, you are the narrative. Every time you perceive the order of events, You're not accessing a fixed record, you're experiencing the brain's latest edit. Let's address one final objection you might have. But when I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I clearly think 1 before 2, that's a fixed order. You're right. For events of ordinary duration, seconds or minutes, the brain's narrative order matches the actual order of neural processing. But when we're talking about events that happen within a few hundred milliseconds, like Libet's tingles or Gray-Walter's carousel, the brain's editing process becomes visible. At this microscale, the standard assumption that experience order matches neural order breaks down. Every event in your brain has a definite spatio-temporal location, but asking exactly when do you become conscious of the stimulus is like asking exactly when did the British Empire become informed of the 1812 truce. Sometime between the 24th of December, 1814 and mid-January 1815, that much is clear, but there's no single moment you can pin down as the official time. The empire was a distributed system, just like your brain. Consciousness is distributed across your brain, so there's no precise moment when each conscious event happens. So the next time you feel like time is absolute, remember, your brain is just doing its best to make sense of a chaotic world. And that's the beauty of it. Your consciousness isn't a slave to time, it's the creator of it. Whether it's backwards referral, precognitive carousels, or simultaneous touches on toe and forehead, your brain's time-traveling tricks are what let you function as a coherent human being. Now, let's recap the key points to remember. The brain represents time through the content of signals, not their arrival time. The Cartesian Theater is a myth. Consciousness is the multiple drafts model. Libet's backwards referral is just the brain assigning timestamps to make sense of sensory input. Gray-Walter's carousel shows how expectations shape our perception of time relative to our own actions. If you found this fascinating, hit subscribe. We're diving deeper into consciousness, neuroscience, and the mysteries of the mind every week. Drop a comment below. Do you trust your time perception now, or has this changed everything? Let's keep the conversation going. And remember, the next time someone says time is real, you can smile and say, only in your brain's latest draft.